on to Manchester City. Now, I don't want to frustrate you by any means, but of course, we're still yet to hear about Man City. What are your thoughts? Because, I mean, it must just be so infuriating.
Well, I've had a number of Man City fans be in contact since our last chat about this. They think that it's wrong to even bring Man City into the same argument because Man City have denied all their charges, whereas Everton have actually admitted to them. I have some sympathy with that point, but not a lot, because those sort of admissions of guilt tend to come closer to the actual trial themselves, and so that's more of a negotiating tactic in terms of the situation. It's obviously complex, the 115 charges we've said many times, but I still believe they come into 3 or 4 categories, and so as such, a lot of them are sub points of similar charges. So I don't know why, again, it's taking so long. It is frustrating. I mean, Man City beat Everton just the other weekend when we talked. And, is there a case now, if Man City are proven guilty and Everton are found to be innocent, does Everton have a chance to sue Man City and get those points back? If this is where this whole stupid merry-go-round that the Premier League have opened up could end. It could be a ridiculous situation like that. And who knows where it's going to end? But this whole legal merry-go-round is something that I'm definitely against, and it should have been handled in a better way.
I mean, one other thing, Keith, to mention that fans have been slightly concerned about, of course, City added to their multi-group project, Istanbul Başakşehir, to their corporation, if you'd like to call them that. Should multi-club ownership be allowed? What are your thoughts? And actually, are you concerned that they could, as a group, just keep growing and growing?
Yeah, look, I've got no real problem with multi-club ownership. I think it can help grow the game in certain ways. I'm not negative towards it. I think we've got to make sure the rules are strengthened. I know that there's a case here if Girona won the La Liga this year, which is still a remote but still a real possibility. Then Man City could be denied Champions League participation, which would be bizarre. But that's just the penalties of being part of a multi-club group. Provided those rules that of clubs playing in the same competitions cannot play against each other, then I've got no problem with it. The idea of having clubs in the A-League in Australia, one in South America, one in, I've got no problem with that. I think the global aspect of that will certainly help. And, it's good to see that experience, knowledge, and a scouting network and a talent network passing on best practice, I think, is good. And so overall, multi-club situations don't really worry me too much.
Does it concern you, though, actually, that effectively owners at that point, though, let's say, take that hypothetically, both Girona and Manchester City get Champions League football. Doesn't it concern you that actually they might have to pick one over the other to play competitive football in Europe? Or actually, they have to go to the governing bodies and try and argue a case of both? What do you make of that?
Well, no, I think the rules are fairly clear that Man City would have to go into the Europa Conference. Look, it depends on the positions they finish and the coefficient. I've been reading a lot about the actual positions and what could happen. There are many different permutations, but it is definitely a real possibility that Girona could be the Champions League preferred candidate from the City Football Group, which would be quite bizarre, but that's the rules as they stand. We've seen it with the Red Bull case before, where they managed to get round the ownership situation and let both participate. I don't think City would be able to go around that route just now at such a late date. So this is really all about UEFA to make a stand on clubs playing in the same competitions. And that's where multi-club groups have got to be careful about who they pick. I mean, some of these multi-club groups want to buy a club in the Championship in the UK, and they have a League One club in France. All of a sudden, that Championship club gets promoted. They get into the Conference League, Europa Conference League, and so does the League One club. And it becomes an unintended consequence of success. But that's exactly the sort of consequence that we've got to be able to make sure happens, and that we guard against clubs under the same ownership playing each other.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. And again, remains to be seen what happens with, say, Girona and Manchester City. If we wrap up, Keith, with City, of course, there was some more news. They've actually threatened to take legal action against the Premier League as a vote was passed to ban sponsorship deals with companies that have links to their ownership. Do you think the Premier League could overturn that? What did you make of that scenario?
Well, I know it's a threat because the vote was very close and there was abstentions, and there's clubs that are still floating on their opinion on this. It's There's obviously no legal action to overturn yet, but still, ooh, everybody understands what the point of view is, that, like with Newcastle, if suddenly the Saudis can spend as much as they want to, then it does destabilize the actual playing field to a degree. I'm still of the opinion that I'm not too concerned about those sort of things happening, because it's still 11 versus 11. We've all seen where clubs on a much smaller budget, like Luton, have managed to, frustrate teams with, £1 billion wage bills and all the rest of it. So let's just try and keep perspective on this. Let's just see that we can, that football can be played and be competitive, provided there are reasonable resources, and that the actual sponsorship money that comes in isn't the actual. I know it's a big factor behind a big correlation between success and money, but it isn't the be all and end all. So let's just try and keep some perspective around the way that we handle these financial inflows into football, because they can also help.
In what ways? What ways do you think they help then?
Well, certainly. I mean, you've seen some of the things that Man City have been able to do, which are very positive in terms of the facilities they've built in that part of Manchester. They've been able to build the City Group internationally throughout the world and add great skills and great knowledge and best practice in many key areas. So that's all come from the money they've had to spend. So there are